I want to offer gratitude for the life that enables me to be here in this moment, and all of the teachers that I've learned from, and all of you out there, wherever you are, watching and listening and learning and trying to figure out how to be a human, and for the glass and plastic and metal and fiber optics and all that enables this communication to happen, and for this breath. There's been a lot on my consciousness lately, and a lot is happening in our world, and I feel called to share a little bit about my life in this moment and the understandings that are coming through. And I am not sure how coherent this will be. I'm going to do my best to just be with it and ride the stream and allow, and even that is vulnerable and a process, and hope you'll take this ride with me, finding your own way. And where I feel called to start is something I've been playing with and sharing and turning over in my consciousness and sharing with people, is the understanding of gravity. And I, like most of us, understood gravity as something that draws us just to the planet, that it's a unidirectional force. And what I'm coming to understand from some different videos that I've watched in my own meditation on it is that everything in the universe that has mass exerts a gravitational gravitational pull. The force of gravity moves through all of us, and that it's not just that our bodies are drawn to the earth, but all of our bodies are simultaneously all drawing towards each other. And we feel the pull of the earth most strongly because of its density. So it has more mass, so more gravitational pull, but it's really everything pulling on everything else. And our experience of life is on this grid. For example, sound can actually exist because of the grid that unites everything with mass, creating these patterns that the sound can move through. And I think of this, I bring this up because of this place and time where we're at that feels like one of the nexus points in this grid, where we have an opportunity to really notice how we're steering the ship. If we understand life as not just I'm on this path and this is my destiny and this is the way I'm going, nor I'm completely at the whim of the forces of nature and I have no control, but rather a combination. I've been feeling and using the metaphor of being on the ocean, and that some days I feel like I'm drowning. Some days I do feel like I'm drowning. Some days I feel like I'm on a life raft held together by my own hair that I wove into a rope and tied some sticks, and it could blow over at any moment, but I'm holding on. And some days I feel like I'm on a beautifully appointed, well-crafted ship, and I have a steering wheel and the sail, and I'm catching the wind, and I get to navigate. But in all of those instances, I'm still on the ocean. I can't control the waves. But when I do feel healthy and connected to my spirit and at agency, I get to steer the ship. And so we're at a nexus point of one of those grid lines of the great gravitational pull, which goes backwards and forwards through time in all directions of space, and could perhaps be interchangeable with love, this word gravity, the force it exerts anyway. And so in this choice point, if we are actually able to steer our own ship, we get to participate with the ocean of life in the reality that we want to co-create together. And there is the calling, the yearning within each of us, and there is the future, the gravity of many potential futures and many potential future descendants, as well as the prayers of our own ancestors, all meeting in this moment on this ocean, across this grid of gravity and space-time, in the potential of having us move towards some future. And so what are you choosing? How are you navigating? I am aware that some things that either weren't even in my conscious awareness or seemed like fantasy or impossible even a few weeks ago are not only possible but necessary. The understanding that capitalism is an illness, not inevitable, that it is a disease that's its end game if it continues on its trajectory that it's had for a few hundred years without being interrupted and changed, is the destruction of all life on this planet, or us first. And Earth will survive. Earth will continue to grow. Life will continue. The question is, will we be here for it? And I've held for a while the understanding that humans exist to create art, that if trees exist to hold the soil together and turn carbon dioxide into oxygen and offer food and flowers and through their mycelium communicate, and bees exist to pollinate, humans exist to create art, to crystallize consciousness in a reflection so that it can see itself through beauty, so life can see itself through beauty. But I'm also now opening to what I perceive as an indigenous understanding of humans' place as a steward, as a co-creator, as a tender, to help life thrive even more. So the planet wants us to stay. That's my feeling, not from a place of hubris or domination or better than or control, but from a place of relationship. I think the planet would miss us like you would miss your cousin or your aunt or your dear friend. But we are in danger of making it impossible for us to live here. And that shifting that is deeply connected with completely transforming our economic, justice, governmental, all of it, systems, not as a concept, not as something that some people somewhere in a boardroom will do, but that is each and every one of us needs to do as soon as possible in the ways that are in alignment with our joy, with our truth, not as just indulgence, but as our true soul's expression of meaning and purpose through pleasure, through beauty, finding where that intersects with what the world needs, how we serve life, how we come into reciprocity and right relationship. And through that, we steer the ship individually and collectively towards healing, beauty, balance, and harmony, joy. And so my invitation, my inquiry, how can you bring yourself a little more alive? For me, it's really examining my relationship with capitalism, and the phrase that just keeps coming into my consciousness recently has been that my ancestors did not survive slavery for me to be a good capitalist. And my entire life, my self-worth has been caught up with how much I produce in a day, what I accomplish, how much money I'm making, or if I'm not making, and then if I get money, how much am I spending or not spending? And it's a constant thought. And for almost anyone, well, from what I understand, for most people, because of the way the system is designed, either they're afraid of not having enough, or they're afraid of what they have being taken away. And so really examining and transforming that relationship, not just my own deserving and calling in abundance and these things, but rather where I ascribe my value to how much money I have or how much I've produced, or the ways that colonialism, capitalism, these structures have told us for so long, especially as Black people, that we are what we make, that we are capital, that we are creatures to create, not in a creative way, but a production way, that we're produce, we are objects. And as I continue to transform that within myself and really track that which in me, which is alive and wild and beautiful and natural and my true suchness, it is art, it is magic, it is finding that which is healing and beautiful and bringing that forth. And some days it's small and some days it's big, and some days it's all I can do to nap, and some days I don't even allow myself to go to bed because I was trained that we're not allowed to rest until we accomplish these things, and I stay up too late trying to accomplish whatever I told myself I was going to do, which I set myself up for an impossible task anyway. And the ongoing practice of surrendering to what's actually healthiest in this moment for my body and my being and my soul. And through that, allowing to emerge the work and the contributions that are both joyful and honest to my own deepest self, and in service to the solution, to the revolution, to the healing of our world. Not because I think I'm better or I have the answer, I don't. It emerges through all of us finding what's true for us and contributing that to the world. So if you are Black, brown, Indigenous, person of color, or in other ways have spent your life being one of the ones most oppressed and most marginalized, like, breathe. Please learn to rest. Find your joy whenever and however you can, even if you're still having to work most of the time to care for yourself and your families. Find those moments of joy and pleasure and follow those as much as you're able to. And if you come from a background of privilege that, if you're watching this, you might just be waking up to, or you're at least starting to have some awareness of, let yourself be uncomfortable in service to a deeper truth. As we start to confront these things, so to break down a little history. So the concept of whiteness is a concept, it's a construct that, as far as I understand, didn't appear in the Oxford English Dictionary, where like white meant a person, until the 1600s. And it started because the European immigrants who did not have a lot of money, who were from the lower classes, were banding up with the enslaved Africans in mostly the South, 16, 17, early 1800s, to try to overthrow their rich overlords and change the system. And there was this whole campaign, the plantation owners, the media of the time, and even the judicial system, to make it so that the law was that Black people were 3/5 of a white person, to create this distinction between the so-called poor whites and the Black people, so that there wouldn't be these revolutions on a class level, and the white people, or the descendants of the Europeans who did not have access to money and privilege and power, would remain on the side of the plantation owners and help continue to maintain the slavery system. So whiteness doesn't actually exist. It's a construct designed to create division that then hundreds of years later has become such an identity that when we are asking people to not be racist, to look at the foundations of our current system, which is racism and stolen land. It's the quote that I keep seeing is like, America is based on stolen land stolen from Indigenous people, built by people who were stolen from their homes. It's all theft of one form or another. But this concept of whiteness woven through, the cognitive dissonance arises because there's not a authentic connection to something real, like a river or the land that is your home, or your own connection with spirit, or your own naturalness. The identity is based on the whiteness, which is being better than. And because it's not real, the nervous system has to work really hard to maintain it. So blackness is exhausting. Whiteness has its own very variety of exhausting, which is maintaining an illusion. And anything that threatens that equality, letting go of racism, letting go of privilege, sharing one's wealth, being confronted with one's own unconscious racism, causes the nervous system to perceive that as a threat and to fight and to either try to run away by dissociating, shut down by going into shame, guilt, it's not me, I'm a good person, or actively fighting either through words or violence, to maintain the ego's illusion of goodness, of the status quo, of the way the ego perceives the reality to be. And so if you are a person who comes from that background of privilege, of descendants of European conquerors, I don't even know the word to use, if you are a white person, whether or not you recognize your privilege, or even if you've had a hard life or are working to overcome that, there will likely still be moments when you feel uncomfortable, when you feel tested, when you don't want to do it, and you don't have to, but we need you to. Examine your biases. What do you think is good? What do you think is bad? Who do you give your money to? What are you voting for? Are you still shopping with Amazon? Can you shift your money to local women and POC-owned businesses? What are you feeding with the energy of your life, be it your money, your words, your thoughts, your art, your work? And can you hold that vision, the gravity of a future where we're actually equitable, where everyone has home, food, shelter, clothing, the resources they need, which is possible right now. One of the concepts that has been like coming to my awareness as I tune into what's actually possible, or as I said earlier, even a few weeks ago, I wouldn't have thought these things are possible, but that we can actually abolish the current police force, which started as slave patrols, and create restorative justice, put that money into mental health reform, better schooling, nutrition for people, and the support so that it doesn't have to lead to crime. We can abolish the current prison system, and people can instead have, again, restorative justice. It's a process, of course. Accountability is necessary. I'm not talking about that we don't hold people accountable, but that we find ways to do it that are actually healing, not just part of the profit model, which the current prison system is. As we dream into that and we call that into being, you might find yourself tested. You might find that creating the new world can be uncomfortable, but it can also be joyful. It can also be pleasurable. And we need every single one of us to participate in that, whatever ways that we can, that are accessible to us, from as simple as writing a letter to your mayor, encouraging them to defund the police or reduce the police budget and put that money towards, again, restorative justice, mental health care, housing the houseless, job training and other forms of education to give people other alternatives than crime, all the way up to creative, using your art in form of protest, to amplifying the voices of melanated people, to putting your money towards equitable solutions, noticing what you share, what media you're consuming. There's so many ways that you can, wherever you are, whatever your level of access and privilege, that you can contribute to the revolution. So I implore you to find where what you love, what brings you alive, meets what the world needs, as we're steering the ship on the great ocean towards healing, towards evolution, towards beauty as a species, so that we can stay here, so that we can end the project of capitalism and colonialism and restore that which actually serves life, which ultimately serves us. As a point I was like getting towards, and I don't think I quite managed to say, was that there's actually enough resource for the 7 billion people. It's not a population problem, it's a distribution problem. How do we redistribute through our individual choices in such a way that we're sharing, that we're in harmony, we're in balance, we're getting to be creative, which is why we exist, to make art. We're stewarding this beautiful garden planet that we have, and we're actually living together on it. I'm going to close this share with a poem that I wrote last autumn, but feels appropriate for this moment, and the invitation within it to step up. It's called Prefigurative. The future, not fixed, draws us forward as we reach towards it. Spider tickles my skin. We are weavers, both. I draw filaments of light braided with heartstrings, play our yearning as a harp in a song not yet learned. Let the wind sing through me, let the children sing to me. I am my mother's child. No thought will free mine of the legacy of slavery. Only the careful unbinding of the dragon under my skin, whose volatile breath rips the pleasantries out of my mouth. The taste of ash gives me courage. I will speak forth until no more babies are beaten by the one sworn to tend them, until no more black churches crumble in flames, until no one uses power as a weapon, until no one steals from life and claims it their own, until no one thinks that profit is a real thing and the only thing, until no one looks at my flesh and decides I am less for it, until we are truly in balance with life and our soul's deepest truth again. See my scales, weak men playing God. See my claws and shudder. Recognize reckoning in my serpentine gaze. This underbelly, once rent and rewoven, waits for those willing to bear their own, can only be seen by those who have also braved fire and trauma and learned the skill of grief. And that the hardest and most necessary things to do are to listen and then lift one's voice and sing. The future, not fixed, draws us forward as we reach towards it. We learn that tears are pickaxes, breaking through the concrete over our hearts, wails the tethers that bring our soul pieces home, outraged howls the hammers that destroy that which wastes life. Fists to the sky and voices speaking truth to power the shovels of the great turning. This weaving is not done in a day or a lifetime, and cannot be done alone. Uncertain yet inevitable beauty calls us on. Chaos and infinity, a maelstrom, a concordance. The paradox of birthing a tomorrow where we can see the sky. One part opening, envisioning our dancing grandchildren in a gentle rain, creating through our believing, one part destroying, dismantling the structures that imprisoned our ancestors and in some ways still ourselves, healing through our unraveling. Seeds cannot grow in undigested shit. Let's learn how to make compost again. Let me feel your hot breath. I will not mind too much if you brush me with your scales. I know they are there, beneath the patina of fragility and the weight of complacence. Don't tell me that you have no time for the revolution, that it's not your job. We are too wily and wild for such nonsense. I will listen only to your tenderness, be it whisper or roar, and the truth that calls us on. Thank you. This has been Naima Lightseed, your priestess of the new paradigm, medicinal poet. Thank you.